On August 18, 1590, Governor John White arrived on the heavily forested coast of Roanoke Island. He had been delayed in England for 3 years by the Spanish Armada, and he was finally returning with fresh supplies, expecting to celebrate his granddaughter Virginia Dare's 3rd birthday. He returned to a complete vacuum. The settlement was entirely dismantled. The wooden houses had been carefully taken down, and there was absolutely no sign of a battle or struggle. Standing as a silent indicator of their destination, the word Croatoan was carved into a prominent wooden post. Over 100 men, women, and children were simply gone. With no bodies and no distress marks, the disappearance birthed America's oldest ghost story. Reconstructing what actually happened requires moving past local legends. We have to test the historical claims directly against modern archaeological findings and buried archival data. For centuries, one prevailing theory was a violent massacre. In 1607, Chief Powhatan told the English settlers at Jamestown that his tribe had attacked and killed the Roanoke group, allegedly showing them English artifacts as proof of the slaughter. Yet no graves, weapons, or physical evidence of a battle have ever been uncovered at Roanoke to support Powhatan's claim. Anthropologist Lee Miller proposed a different scenario: deliberate sabotage. She argued that the colonists were intentionally stranded by their pilot, Simon Fernandez, under orders from a political rival in England named Sir Francis Walsingham. This map visualizes the proposed outcome of that sabotage. Without supplies, the stranded colonists would have been captured and dispersed across a vast, complex Native American trading network stretching throughout the Carolinas. Physical evidence seemed to emerge in the 1930s to support a tragic end. A tourist discovered a heavy engraved rock, the first of the so-called Dare stones, bearing a desperate message supposedly carved by Eleanor White Dare, detailing the colony's violent fate. However, after a public reward was offered, dozens of similar stones suddenly materialized across different locations. These subsequent finds are now universally identified by historians as forgeries. The noise of competing narratives, from 16th century political sabotage to 20th century financial hoaxes, effectively buried the physical evidence left behind by the colonists themselves. A potential answer was hiding on a primary document, John White's original 425-year-old watercolor map. In 2011, researchers noticed 2 distinct paper patches applied over the surface. They used X-ray spectroscopy, an imaging technique detecting hidden elements, to look beneath the ink. This diagram highlights what the X-rays revealed: a hidden blue and red symbol plotted exactly 50 miles inland from Roanoke. This coordinate matches White's written account, noting the colonists had planned to move 50 miles into the Main. Following this map coordinate, the First Colony Foundation opened an archaeological excavation along a bank near Edenton, North Carolina, designating the location Site X. In the dirt at Site X, they uncovered Elizabethan artifacts. They found shards of Surrey, Hampshire borderware and everyday English pottery produced only until 1624, alongside fragments of North Devon jars, which were heavy clay containers specifically used to provision ocean voyages. The presence of domestic dinnerware alongside deep-sea provisioning jars points to a prolonged English presence. It suggests the colony packed their equipment and actively relocated. With the finds at Site X, the word Croatoan carved on the sports post begins to look less like a mystery and more like a literal directional sign pointing toward Hatteras Island. The archaeological record points to a splintered colony. A small group of survivors traveled inland to Site X, while the majority likely moved south to settle directly on Hatteras Island, the home of the Croatoan tribe. Rather than maintaining an isolated, failing outpost, the colonists likely integrated with the friendly indigenous population. Excavations show evidence of cultural exchange. They adapted English earrings into fishhooks and repurposed iron gun barrels into sharp tubes for tapping trees. Over a century later, English explorer John Lawson traveled through the region and documented encounters with native people who had blue eyes and shared oral histories of ancestors who could speak out of a book. Modern efforts like the Lost Colony DNA project have searched for definitive genetic links to the settlers among modern populations. While precise DNA matches remain elusive, the behavioral and archaeological records offer a compelling narrative of survival. The evidence suggests that the first permanent English colonists in America didn't vanish. Instead, they likely chose survival over isolation. gradually abandoning their borders to integrate into the indigenous American world.